What's going on, everyone? Austin John Plays here, and today I want to talk about the changes to the mass outbreak system in Pokemon Scarlet and Violet Teal Mask that makes getting some of the rarest shiny Pokemon ever in existence easier than ever. Previously, some of the most difficult Pokemon for you to actually shiny hunt were ones that had a secondary criteria for a specific form that you were going after. An example of that would be Sinistea over here. Sinistea has a chance to have a little label underneath that differentiates the antique versus the phony forms, and then that carries over with what items it uses to evolve. And previously, you weren't able to efficiently do mass outbreaks for you to go ahead and catch these Pokemon because of one main reason. Every time that there was a mass outbreak, the mass outbreak would always default to the base form, meaning that if there was a slight variation between the different forms, like Squawkabilly's different colors, the 3 different types of Tatsugiri, or having the phony versus antique forms of this Polteageist and Sinistea, then it would always default to the phony form, or whatever was programmed as Form 0. Anytime you saw mass outbreaks appearing in Cagelocke Lake, you would see one of the 3 different Tatsugiri forms. The only thing is, the Tatsugiri who would actually appear there was always the default form, so on and so forth like that. However, since the update that introduced the Teal Mask, this has actually been fixed. And while that may not sound like a huge change, it makes getting some of the most difficult Pokemon ever, like an artisan version of Polteageist over here, significantly easier. While it's not exactly 1 out of 100 are going to be the artisan form, it has to do with how many Pokemon are totally available in the pool. For oversimplification's sake, let's just say it's 1 out of 100. Meaning that if you were to come across shiny ones in the wild, 99 out of 100 of them for the Sinistea over here would be the counterfeit forms, and then 1 out of 100 would be the artisan forms. And the artisan ones required the Masterpiece teacup so that you could have the Masterpiece version of Sinistea. I'm really getting the order of these two mixed up, so I may reference that. Based on my previous testing and the evidence that I provided on how to manipulate what Pokemon you get in mass outbreaks, all of that still remains true here in the Teal Mask. Meaning that if you wanted to get yourself this Polteageist, it's very simple. There are 2 different things that you can do to influence what Pokemon you're going to be getting in mass outbreaks. One of that has to do with where you are physically on the map. I know for a fact that Polteageist is only going to be spawning around the bamboo trees over here and over here. So as long as I'm somewhere in this area, that's going to increase the likelihood that Polteageist is going to be able to be in a mass outbreak if I were to go a certain amount of days forward. The second thing that you can do is have an active meal power for encounter power. Now I have tested level 1, 2, and 3, and the higher level is a little bit more efficient. It's typically not worth the Herba Mystica in my opinion, as it's a very small return on a very expensive item. So feel free to go through all of the different sandwiches that there are for something that's going to get you encounter power 2 for ghost types, or use a very simple recipe that's going to get you level 1, which is just going to be butter and herb sausage. That's going to get me encounter power ghost, which is going to increase the likelihood of me coming across any ghost type Pokemon during mass outbreaks. And in order to change the mass outbreak, all you have to do is go into your system settings and then either change your date or your time. I've actually been a big fan of just rewinding 1 minute. That way I'm still catching Pokemon on the same day that I'm supposed to be. And as long as you've actually discovered this Pokemon, it is going to be showing up in a mass outbreak. If you have not identified the species, you may get that question mark over there. And then all you have to do is repeat this process until you get the outbreak that you want. Now there's something important that I want to talk about. This update also has a little bit of a performance issue having to do with mass outbreaks, that they typically don't show up properly on the map. But anytime that you're going for a mass outbreak, you may notice some lag in what's displayed on the map. If you were to look around, there's a chance that you're going to come across a mass outbreak that kind of appears and then disappears. Or like right now where there's no mass outbreaks on my map other than this C dot down here, that's typically an error. All you have to do is close the map, open the map back up, and now we can see that there was a Gyarados right there, and there's another outbreak down here. Neither of those icons showed up for me while I was going through here, and that's not how the game's supposed to act, so Yes, there is a little bit of an issue going on, and maybe they're going to go ahead and resolve that before the Clefairy events go live at the end of the month. But honestly, it's not that big of an issue for specific hunts that you're going after. Granted, some Pokemon are extremely rare and are going to show up so infrequently. Like, I've been trying to get a Feebas to spawn in the cave lake, and I've been yet unsuccessful at that. I've jumped 3 months in advance with a level 2 dish on. However, it only took me about 3 weeks of skipping in order to get my first Poltergeist. Now, this is pre-recorded footage because I did show you that I caught those Pokemon and they were in my party. After rolling about 3 weeks forward, I managed to get an Outbreak, but those were the non-authentic ones, the counterfeit Poltergeists. However, after doing it again, I found an Artisan Outbreak. Now, you can figure this out by either going and looking underneath one of them, or you could catch one of them and on that pop-up screen, it's going to be telling you exactly what it was. Therefore, that's going to change the whole fundamental idea of how this Outbreak is going to be working, because it's no longer you looking for in the wild 1 out of 100 to actually have the authentic mark or the non-phony mark. Instead, 100% of the time, it is going to be that Artisan version, and every single one of them is going to be having that little icon at the bottom. So now it's just a matter of going, knocking out 60 of the Pokemon, putting down a hard save, and then resetting after you did those 60 Pokemon from that mass outbreak, because that gives you the highest shiny odds. Optionally, you could also do your level 3 dish for encounter and sparkling power, which I just do red onion and 2 salt herba mystica. Unfortunately, Poltergeist's shiny is not very visible. Instead of the black part of its body, it's just going to be a dark green part of its body, and it's not too easy to see. That's the reason that I typically just like sending out my Let's Go Mon, have him go around, knock out a whole bunch of Pokemon, and then if he happens to get it, great. But then if he does that little sweat icon, I know that either 1, he's stuck on a road somewhere, 2, he's having trouble dealing with that terastallized Poltergeist over there that I was just ignoring for the longest time. See the sweat marks? Or I found a shiny. Well, he found the shiny. So after doing my 60 Pokemon, I came across this one that he was having trouble dealing with. And if I look at it, he's really low to the ground for some reason. But yeah, there he is. That's a shiny Artisan Poltergeist. I even try panning underneath, but it just doesn't happen. Now, if you were talking about like the full odds of a Sinistea in Sword and Shield doing the random encounters, you were looking at about 1 out of 409,600 chance at getting a shiny authentic one. But now that you can do a mass outbreak and you can find the exact version of the Pokemon that you want, the exact form, this is easier than ever. On top of that, it's about 50-50. If you were to go through and if you were to roll for different Poltergeist outbreaks, you're probably going to be seeing about 50% of them being counterfeit and 50% of them being Artisan. So it's going to be super easy for you to go and get this much more elusive Pokemon. With that outbreak, I was able to get all 4 of them that I actually needed for Pokemon Home, being 2 Artisans that are regular, not shiny for my living dex, and then 2 Artisan shiny ones for my shiny living dex. I've upgraded my living dex from a Final Form dex to a living dex because, I mean, I have access to these Pokemon, I might as well go for it, know what I mean? From here, the most pain in the butt thing I have to deal with is this Masterpiece Teacup. I only have 1 of them from the placed item behind the cave with the Snorlax, and now I have to go and do the Ogre Oustin for the additional 3. Because I think that's the only place you can get them. Let me look up, see if anyone else found anything else. Nope. Other than the one in the Timeless Woods behind the Snorlax, and other than Ogre Oustin rewards in hard mode at about less than 4%, I don't see any other way to get Masterpiece Teacup, so I'm going to be grinding that quite a bit. So with this, you're going to be able to get yourself alternate forms of Poltergeist, Squawkabilly, Tatsugiri. I'm just looking at the decks now. I'm like, are there other things that I'm not thinking of? Right? There's no Dunsparce outbreaks? There are Dunsparce outbreaks, coded to be in caves. If this remains true, then there's a good chance that you're going to be able to just roll yourself a 1-to-1 odds between 2-segment outbreaks and 3-segment outbreaks, and then hunt down the 3-segment shiny Dunsparce, which That was a nightmare, because you would have to catch all of the shinies and then just evolve all of them to see if they have a 3-segment form. Are there any other advantages that you possibly see for these changes to the mass outbreak system? Leave them in the comment section down below. If you found this video helpful, do me a favor, hit the thumbs up. If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, turn on notifications. Until next time, Austin John out.
Man, they see me shining like I got the charm. Stay strapped, got that jet ball in my palm. Fell from the sky, guess I'm the chosen one. And if you need to know how, check out Austin John. Champion flow, yeah, I got that champion flow.